Yesterday, Donald Trump announced that there's a drug that works against the novel coronavirus. He's actually talking about the old malaria drug called Chloroquine and expresses his feelings about the drug in a press conference.
Look, it may work and it may not work. And I agree with the doctor, what he said. May work, may not work. I feel good about it. That's all it is, just a feeling. I'm a smart guy. I feel good about it.
I'm not even kidding. This was literally from a press conference after he was asked about the efficacy of chloroquine against the novel coronavirus. Now, just feeling good about something doesn't help us to fight this horrible pandemic that has caused already so many deaths. And instead, I want to go a more scientific way here to approach this problem and to answer the question whether chloroquine could actually work or not. And therefore I want to start this video by talking about the mechanism behind it. So why would chloroquine actually work against coronavirus, even though it's a malaria drug? And then in the end of the video, I want to look at some preliminary studies that have used chloroquine as a treatment for COVID-19, so the disease caused by coronavirus. Now, before we look at the mechanism on how chloroquine works, we first need to understand how the virus actually infects our cells and how it proliferates inside our cells. So after the coronavirus binds to its receptor, the ACE2 receptor, it fuses with the plasma membrane and releases the viral RNA, so its genomic material. Then our own cells start reading this viral RNA to produce viral proteins. So the virus hijacks the cellular machinery. And these viral proteins also include a so-called RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. And this RNA polymerase then amplifies the viral genome. And once all the parts of the new virus are produced, the virus assembles and leaves the cells to infect more cells. Now, a fascinating study, already published 10 years ago, found ways to block this RNA polymerase, so block the replication of the viral genome. To be clear here, this paper of course didn't look at the novel coronavirus, but looked at SARS-1 coronavirus, which is very closely related to the coronavirus that right now spreads around the globe. So what did the researchers do to inhibit the RNA polymerase and thereby stop replication of the SARS coronavirus? Basically, all they did was to increase the concentration of zinc inside our cells. So we all know that zinc is kind of important for the immune system. But what the researchers found was that zinc directly inhibits the RNA polymerase. There was just one problem. The problem was that zinc doesn't really go into our cells easily. And therefore they had to use some small tricks and added another molecule here, which is zinc ionophore. Ionophores are simply molecules that help to bring other things inside our cells. So our cell is surrounded by a lipid bilayer that is not very permeable to many things. And the zinc ionophore then help to shuttle the zinc into our cells, and thereby the zinc could stop the viral RNA polymerase and thereby reduce the proliferation of the virus. So what does this have to do with chloroquine? Well, a study published 4 years after the first study found that chloroquine actually acts as a zinc ionophore. So it helps to bring zinc from outside the cell inside the cell, where it potentially could then stop the RNA polymerase from working and stop the virus from reproducing. Now, we have to mention here that both studies are obviously done not in humans but in vitro, meaning in a petri dish where cells were growing and where the cells were then infected with the virus. So let's look at trials. Let's look at human studies where chloroquine was used to prevent viruses, and especially the novel coronavirus, because every virus is different, as we know. So a few days ago, there was a study uploaded on the medRxiv preprint server by a group in France that used hydroxychloroquine, so an analog of chloroquine, to treat people with COVID-19. So people who are infected with the coronavirus and have been admitted to a hospital because of a variety of symptoms. Okay, let's dive into it. The researchers treated 20 patients with confirmed coronavirus with hydroxychloroquine, and 16 other patients served as a control group and didn't receive any additional treatment. Now, what the researchers were up to was not the actual clinical outcome of the disease, but rather the viral load. So how many viruses are detectable at a certain point in time. To analyze the viral load, the researchers collected nasal swabs, so putting a Q-tip up the patient's nose and hope that some virus sticks on it, and then analyzing how much virus is actually left in a patient. And what they found was, on the first view, very impressive. They found that after 6 days, so it was a rather short study, 70% of the patients that have been treated with hydroxychloroquine showed no virus anymore, compared to only 12.5% of patients in the control group. Now, this is a big difference, and we could be very enthusiastic about the results if there wouldn't be two major caveats here. So let's talk about them. One major caveat is that nasal swabs, so meaning the viral load we detect in the nose, does not necessarily associate with disease outcome. We have no evidence that actually, if the virus is low in the nose, that the disease in the lung will not unfold, meaning that the disease can still become really, really bad because that's where the virus causes the trouble, in the lung, right? And not in the nose. So there's not necessarily a correlation. And then the second shortcoming, and probably the bigger shortcoming of the study, is also that it wasn't a randomized control study. So the researchers had two groups of people. The one group that was treated with the hydroxychloroquine was already more advanced in the disease. So if you look into the details of the study, you find that those people were on average already showing symptoms for more than a week, while the control group seemed to be rather freshly infected with the coronavirus. And we do know that in 98% of the cases, the viral load will actually become reduced by itself, meaning that the further you progress into the disease, the more likely it is that your viral loads will go down over time again. Now, I'm not saying that the study wasn't worth publishing or at least making it public, because it isn't published yet. However, we have to be careful and not simply start treating everyone now with hydroxychloroquine before we have more solid data. As one example is that we have pretty solid data that hydroxychloroquine, or chloroquine in general, works against the influenza virus in vitro, so in cell culture, and even in animal models. However, human trials have failed to show the same results. Now, the influenza virus and the coronavirus are different viruses. They are pretty similar, but there are differences. So we can still be optimistic that hydroxychloroquine will show a positive outcome. So what I hope to accomplish with this video is that we rather listen to scientists and physicians and not to politicians when it comes to treating people with certain drugs, as Trump obviously doesn't really understand that there can be some downsides to this drug, even though it's approved as a malaria drug.
It is known as a malaria drug, and it's been around for a long time, and it's very powerful. But the nice part is it's been around for a long time. So we know that if things don't go as planned, it's not going to kill anybody.
He might be right that the drug won't kill anyone. However, there are certain drug-to-drug interactions that has to be taken into account, and this drug has quite some side effects. Here's a list of common side effects. Of one is also getting blind. So it's a bad trade-off, kind of, if you treat a disease but then causing blindness instead. Now, here are two more videos where I talk about why the coronavirus is so bad for certain people, and one video where I talk about some, what I find very, very promising treatment and prevention strategy against the coronavirus. Thank you for watching, stay safe and healthy, and hopefully see you next time.